What is up, denizens of the interwebs? It's Chats here, coming at you with another video. This time, we're looking at one of the worst modern takes of game journalists I have ever seen that is completely irrelevant to any of the culture war stuff. So, like, subscribe, and hop in, losers. We're pointing and laughing at journalists again. Alright, so the whole point of this video is coming from this article over at The Gamer from one Ben Sledge. And the article title is, What If Video Games Did Cover Versions? And what he is talking about is similar to how multiple musicians will generally go and they'll do covers of big songs, like Five Finger Death Punch with their covers of Gone Away, House of the Rising Sun, and Bad Company. And that's only a few of the major covers that band has done, and many bands do covers. It is one of the most common things in music. If you're not writing your own original music, you're doing covers. And writing music is hard. Doing covers isn't. So with that in mind, this whole article makes zero sense. It makes absolutely no sense, and I can't even fathom how someone would come up with these ideas. So let's get into it, because it makes me legitimately feel like I am going insane. So the first big point that he likes to make is talking about how books too retreated to the same stories time and time again, which is true. A lot of books do draw inspiration from other books, and even go down to the basic levels of the books, given the whole archetype theory. But regarding the archetype theory, Sledge specifically covers that is not what he's talking about with the 7 basic plots. So what is Sledge talking about? Well, he's talking about remaking an old story for modern times. That's the first thing he mentions, which, yes, we do that. We've had some excellent books and some excellent movies. The number one thing I can think of is 10 Things I Hate About You, rom-com starring Heath Ledger, which is amazingly done, and is probably one of the best rom-coms I've ever seen. Yes, I watch rom-coms. I don't care. He continues on down here with the answer to his own question. So why don't games do this? The short answer is they already do. But the problem here is he doesn't seem to get the point. He goes on to say how developers will reuse narrative devices, control schemes, or mechanics, which honestly makes no sense why he's even mentioning that, because that's not what he's talking about. And it's very clear that's not what he's talking about when you go on to what he's actually mentioning. Larian's Dragon Age Inquisition, which literally just means he wants Larian Studios to do Dragon's Age Inquisition, but in the style of Baldur's Gate 3. So why not, and hear me out, just play Baldur's Gate 3 and wait for more Larian Studios games. Fumito Ueda's Tears of the Kingdom. Fumito Ueda is the developer of Colossi of the Shadow. And what Sledge is saying he wants done here is he wants him to directly take Legend of Zelda and put Link in it. And the main reason he mentions that at all is because Colossi of the Shadow was used as direct inspiration for Tears of the Kingdom, which makes sense because of how similar the games are. Some of his other ideas are Hideo Kojima's Grand Theft Auto. I don't have a clue what he's thinking with this one. I don't even know what that would look like. Hideo Kojima does these overly grandiose high art games, and that makes no sense when compared with Grand Theft Auto, low scum style. And while it could be really awesome to see Hideo Kojima do a crime-based game that is low level, why would you want it to be Grand Theft Auto? If you turn something like Grand Theft Auto into something it isn't, then what's the point? It's neither Grand Theft Auto, nor is it Hideo Kojima, because Hideo Kojima would never make a game like that, and Grand Theft Auto doesn't have any of those ideas. He once again continues with these bizarre pairings with Hidetaki Miyazaki's Oblivion, saying that he wants an Oblivion-style game paired with Elden Ring combat and level design, which on the surface, I don't have an issue with that either, but the point is, if it's the character design of Elden Ring, then it isn't Oblivion, and vice versa. If it's the character design of Oblivion, then it isn't Elden Ring. And it'd be awesome to have something close to that. We have several mods in Skyrim that turn Skyrim into an Elden Ring style game, which is phenomenal, and it looks insanely cool. I don't have the mod pack, so I can't say how it plays, but the point is, you don't need Hidetaka Miyazaki to go in and make this game. You can have someone make a brand new game, taking inspiration. And it comes down here to talk about Gareth Domain Martin's Titanfall 2. I don't know who Gareth Domain Martin is, so I'm not sure what game he's referencing there. But he says two completely baffling and just utterly incorrect things here. First of all, I told you we'd get spicy, and before you ask, no, I didn't just smash two of my favorite games together like a kid playing with Barbie and Ken. Barbie and Ken go together. What is that trying to say? Barbie and Ken are literally pieces together. If he wanted to make a compelling argument, he would have said something like smashing Barbie and his Optimus Prime together, or something like that. Barbie and Ken are literally hand in hand. That's like saying pairing Bethesda and Skyrim together. Of course they go together. He's who made it. This statement makes absolutely no sense, and neither does the rest of the article. I honestly think this is an article typewritten by a bunch of monkeys given a keyboard an infinite amount of time. He then continues on down here where he goes on to say, I'd love to explore the worlds of Titanfall, but from the perspective of an ordinary person. So why do you need Gareth Domain Martin to do that? Why can't someone tied to EA or tied to Respawn Entertainment do that? It makes absolutely no sense. This notion of the covers is absolutely ludicrous. Now, before I actually get to talking about what really is wrong with all this, I thought I'd go and look at some of Sledge's other headlines. And he's got a couple of interesting ones. So Ben Sledge here has done a large number of articles for the Art Gamer, and most of them are completely as nonsensical as the rest of them. There is no better time to try your first indie game. I don't think there's anyone who goes out specifically seeking indie games or not. Instead, he should be calling out good games in general, regardless of whether or not they're indie. But, I mean, that's not the worst take he has. But this one, Pokemon Go has become a Strand game. Why? Because it's a walking sim? Because your job is to walk and battle large monsters that are intimidating and probably beat you if you don't have a good enough team or build? I don't understand the take here. And his entire reason for calling it a Strand-like is absolutely insane. His definition of a Strand-like is a game that involves single-player play where players can leave things for other people. Like how in Death Stranding you can leave ladders, anchors, and bridges for other people to utilize. His whole argument here is that after you finish a Dynamax raid, you can leave the Dynamax Pokemon at the Pokestop you interacted with for other players to use. And I'm just like, how does that make it a Strand? This entire notion of everything he's saying is like if you told a 7-year-old what was in Strand, he's like, oh, it's kind of like how you can do this in Pokemon Go. It makes absolutely no sense. The way he made these gaps is absolutely baffling to me. And then he continues on down here with another thing. I would do unspeakable things for Tom Bombadil's Hedgehog Teapot. Tom Bombadil's vibes in the Rings of Power is unparalleled. So the idea that not only does this guy just have brain dead takes about video games, but it's clear he's got them about TV shows too, if he's out here shilling for Rings of Power. Now here's what I think he should do for Tom Bombadil's Hedgehog Teapot. I think he should probably delete several of these articles, give it an honest review once or twice, and, I don't know, have an original thought that isn't something that it would be thought of by a 7-year-old. Now, I will say, he has one good take. One take that I do thoroughly respect on here. It makes perfect sense that Minecraft trailer used the Beatles' worst song. A terrible song for a terrible movie. I never actually heard that Beatles song, but yeah, the use in the trailer was horrible, and the trailer was horrible. So that kind of makes sense. So, don't go out and harass Ben Sledge. So going back to this article, the biggest problem with it is he says exactly what he's talking about in the article, but he doesn't realize it. The entire notion of what he's talking about is inspiration. It has nothing to do with someone copying something else. He says that people do this in games, they do it in books, they do it in movies. Sometimes they do just do covers of stuff, but it's not enough of a cover because when it comes to a creative process like a TV show or movie, you can't just do a one-for-one most of the time. It's going to come out different because of the sheer number of variables when it comes to these kind of creative processes. I don't understand why he's calling it a cover when he could say more games should take blatant inspiration. Maybe that'd be a better way to say it, not that they need to do covers. This entire point is completely ludicrous, and either he's coming up with something just to write an article, or he legitimately doesn't know what he's talking about. So, with all that being said, I just cannot fathom why he's saying that he wants them to be covers. Wouldn't he rather say, for Hideo Kojima doing a version of Grand Theft Auto 5, wouldn't he rather Hideo Kojima do his own kind of multiplayer grounded crime-based game? Wouldn't that be a much better option? Wouldn't it be better for Miyazaki to do his own version of a giant RPG Oblivion-style game rather than just copying Oblivion? We've seen Oblivion. We know its story. Why do we need another version of the story that would change so much? Very rarely is a massive kind of overhaul like this going to be something that you'd want, especially from a different creator. The closest thing I can think of is the remaster of Cube, but all they did in that game was they made some of the puzzles more challenging, upped the graphics, and they added a story that was voiced by several characters, and it was a really interesting game. But that's neither here nor there. Why do you want them to go through and just remake the game? I cannot think of a single game that I want someone else to make. Like Dishonored made by Todd Howard? That would suck. All of this stuff would suck if it was made by someone else. And that's the thing. When someone makes something, they put themselves into it. I wouldn't want, say, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League remade by the original people at Rocksteady. That's not what I want. I would rather they do maybe take inspiration from Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, do a similar-esque idea, but it shouldn't be the one-for-one. And if you're doing the one-for-one in a different style, then you're not doing a one-for-one. What you're talking about isn't a remake. It's inspiration. It's taking the essence of it and continuing it forward. The term Sledge is looking for isn't remake, it's retelling. And retellings are fine. You can do retellings in all kinds of ways. Look at Moulin Rouge, a retelling of the story of Orpheus, and one of the best musicals I've ever seen. That's not the same thing as a cover. A cover of Orpheus would be just like all the Trojan War movies, where it's the same type of people, same looking people doing the same actions. Some are better than others, but they're mostly doing the exact same thing. And that's not what he's talking about. That's not what Sledge is mentioning at all. So his use of the word cover is completely wrong. But even if it wasn't wrong, why would you want it? I'm legitimately curious. If anyone has an answer as to why they would want it, I would love to know in the comments below. But that's all I've got for today. So thanks for coming along to just laugh at how utterly brain dead these takes of most of these game journalists are.